Well, thank you, everyone. So I think we will start. I'm going to start with some opening remarks. As a preliminary matter, my name is Pete Pecos. I am the chair for the Newbury Planning Board. Please permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Planning Board members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. George Morse,
Yes.
Larry Murphy,
Yes.
Leslie Matthews,
Yes.
Woody Knight,
Yes.
Mary Stone,
Yes.
Town Council Brian Winger,
Brian Winter is present.
Town staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Martha Taylor,
Yes.
Emily Noble.
Yes.
Anticipated speakers, presenters on the agenda, please respond in the affirmative. Robert Grasso,
Yes.
Jill Mann,
See her yet.
Stephen Sawyer,
Don't see him. Oh, he's just coming on.
okay, Tom Hughes,
Don't see him yet.
okay, Arthur Costanzas, William DiFrancesco,
Yes.
Chris York,
Yes.
Eva and Fred Jackman.
I think Eva's here. Eva.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. Hello.
Hi.
Thank you. Good evening. This is September 6th, 2020. Open meeting of the Newbury Planning Board is being conducted remotely consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth and due to the outbreak of COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend, and as such, the governor's orders suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted with agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. For this meeting, the Newbury Planning Board is convening by video conference via Zoom as posted on the Planning Board's agenda, which can be found on the Planning Board section of the town's website, and which identifies how the public may join us. You may join by going to http Zoom US and enter the meeting ID 832-7141-3056 or by calling 929-250-6099 and entering 832-7141-3056. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that the attendees are participating by either video or telephone conference. Meeting materials were provided to the board members prior to the meeting for review. Applicants or their representatives may be called upon to speak and, if needed, share information to the screen. Please state the intention after you have been called. So here are some ground rules that we have, and I would just like to go over these. First, I, as the chair, will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After the speakers conclude their remarks, I will go down the list of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, question, or motion. Please hold until your name is called. Further, for all attendees except the board members and staff, please remember to mute your phone by *6 to toggle to mute and unmute, or on your computer, the mute button when you are not speaking. Please use earbuds, earphones with tablets or cell phones. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps us generate accurate minutes. Please be aware that video participants can see you and that you should take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured in the recording. For any response, please wait until I yield the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If board members wish to engage in discussion with other members, please do so through the chair. With regards to public comment, there will be an opportunity for public comment and questions during public hearings. After board members have spoken, I will afford the public an opportunity to comment and/or ask questions in the following manner. I will seek questions and comments through the raise hand function. Video participants can access this function by clicking on the participants buttons shown in the menu below the photo gallery at the bottom of the Zoom screen. A list of participants will open and display on the right. At the bottom of this, participants will see an area where you can click to raise hand button. Please ensure that your name, excuse me, is fully and correctly displayed on the participant list. You may rename yourself by going into the More functions next to your name. For telephone participants, you can use your phone keypad while in the Zoom meeting. The raise hand function is *9. I will then allow questions and comments from members of the public who have raised their hands in the order in which they are listed. Our system will keep track of who raises their hand first. Each participant will be called on to provide his or her name and address, and then ask their question or make a comment. I will afford the applicant or participant or his or her representatives the opportunity to reply. Your hand will be lowered when you have been given the floor for your question. I will then continue down the list of the raise hand column and again afford participant, applicant, representatives an opportunity to speak. Should there be any physical or electronic submission of questions or concerns, they will be read into the record, and again, the participant, applicant, representatives will be afforded the opportunity to speak if the issues raised had not been addressed. And my vice chair will be certain that I will be sure to do roll call voting for all business meeting things. And I think that wraps up questions that I need to, or the comments I need to start off with. With that, it's 7:07. We do have a pretty good agenda tonight, so we're going to try to keep I see 2 submissions. I'm not sure if both submissions will take place, and we have 3 public hearings. So as we've done in the past, we will try to limit the time on our public hearings out of a courtesy to the applicants, to the people that are participating, and also to be sure to keep our agenda moving along. So if I seem to direct the discussion or appear to be limiting time, please do not be offended, but I do want to try to be fair to the board, the applicants, and all the participants in this meeting tonight. So I think first what we'll do before we start with our public hearings, Martha, do we have a couple of submissions? I see a submission, Robert Grasso, Engineering Land Services LLC, submission for a definitive subdivision plan, 23 Shandell Drive Extension Map U06, lots 124 and 126. Owner applicant Scott and Patricia Kinter.
We do have that one. Bob dropped off the required copies today, so that is ready for formal filing with the board tonight. And Bob is here to speak just very briefly to it.
Hey, Bob, do you want to talk for a couple minutes about this?
Absolutely. This is Bob Grasso from Engineering Land Services. The lot is located off of Rolfs Lane. It has no frontage on Rolfs Lane, and it has no frontage at all right now. What we're proposing to do is create frontage off of Shandell Drive from the Newbury Port at the town line into Newbury. And this is why we're filing a definitive subdivision, because we're creating frontage to create a lot. So in the end, we will have sufficient frontage, sufficient area to create a lot for our single family dwelling. We've filed the Form C today with the town clerk and the planning board director, Martha. We also submitted a letter for waivers for the construction and part of the subdivision regulations. We've have comments in the application from the sewer and water and the planning director from Newburyport. We submitted those. We've also submitted the order of conditions that we have filed with the Newbury Conservation Commission that was issued on 9th of 2019. So we've done the stormwater and drainage because we had some wetlands on the site. We were working within 100 feet of the wetland buffer. So we have those, the Conservation Commission approval. And after that, we submitted an A&R plan to this commission to create sufficient area for this lot, which entitles the Harrison property off Rolfs Lane. We also submitted a certified abutters list from the Newbury Assessor's Office and a certified abutters list to the Newburyport from the Newburyport Assessor's Office. Once we get on the agenda, we will notify all the residents that will be affected.
All right, thank you, Bob. Are there any brief questions from any of our board members? I'll just kind of quickly go down the list. Larry?
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay, George?
None.
Great. Mary? Mary?
Oh, no,
Okay, Leslie?
nothing.
And Woody?
Nope.
Okay, thanks very much. I'd entertain a motion to accept the application.
So moved.
Second,
Is there any discussion on the motion? All right, I see no indication of the discussion, so I'll do a roll call. Larry?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Leslie?
yes.
Woody?
Yes.
Mary, how do you feel?
Yes.
And the chair is also in favor as well. Great. Now, as a matter of housekeeping, Martha, I'd like a little direction. Do you want to pop up to show so we can take a look to see where we're at with things?
Yes, let me see if I can do that.
Okay.
Can you see that?
Not yet.
No, okay, hold on. Let me do this differently. Sorry, one of these days I will do this. All right, this should do it. Now do you see it?
It should be coming. There we go.
There it is.
Okay, can we enlarge that
Let me see.
a little bit? Okay.
How's
And we might need to shift it over since in enlarging it, we lost our left columns,
Yes,
our ABCs.
I see that. Let's see.
Looks good.
Okay, so just for the board members and for members of the public, this is just what the planning board is currently dealing with. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 currently open public hearings. We have a preliminary subdivision project in process, and then we have upcoming applications. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I just want everyone to be aware of of what we have going on with our meeting schedule. And I do want to just, let folks know that we are, still under Chapter 53 of the Acts of 2020. So statutory deadlines with regards to our accepting applications are stayed during the state of emergency. So we have a little bit of flexibility on our workload per se with regards to that. What I don't want to do is I don't want to create a bottleneck with what we have for an agenda, what we can do in our meetings, and what our staff can handle. With that, Larry, I'm going to see if you have any comments on that.
No.
George?
Yes. Oh, no comments.
Okay. Leslie?
Nothing right now.
Okay. Woody?
Nope.
Okay. Mary?
No comments.
Okay. Martha, can we pop down the screen for a sec?
Sure.
Peter, may I say one thing?
Go ahead, Bob.
I consider this a very minor project to Newbury.
Okay.
We have all the grading and the protection of the wetland through the Conservation Commission, and basically all the utilities will be going to Newburyport, through Newburyport. So we're not really affecting any utilities in Newbury. Basically, we're just creating frontage, and at the end of the Shandell Drive, we're not building a roadway. We're just extending the edge of the pavement to a 14-foot driveway into the single-family dwelling. So I consider this a very minor project as a
I understand, Bob.
as a definitive subdivision plan. The only reason why we're saying that because we're creating frontage.
Great. I appreciate those comments, and I appreciate the submission. Public hearings, Bob. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go into our public hearings, which start at 7:15. So let me just pull this up for a second. So with regards to our public hearings, first public hearing is a renotice public hearing, an open space OSRD special permit, 105 High Road, map R48, lot 49, owner, author and Sandra Costanza. Applicant is DePiero LLC. This is continued from August 19th, 2020. We just want to indicate that this hearing was renoticed because the applicant submitted a revised yield and concept plans that showed a larger number of lots and dwellings and units than that was originally proposed when the public hearing was first noticed. Martha, could you pop up the public hearing notice so that our clerk could please read it?
Yes.
I actually have it right here in front of me.
Oh, great. Thank you, Leslie.
Do you want me to go put it up?
If Leslie has it, it would be, yeah, that way the public can follow along with it. That'd be great. Thank you very much.
All right. Is that visible?
Yep. Town of Newbury, Office of the Planning Board, 12 Kent Way, Byfield, Mass. 978-465-0862, extension 312, legal notice. Town of Newbury Planning Board Public Hearing Notice. Residents of the Town of Newbury and other interested persons, please note that on Wednesday, September 16th, 2020 at 7:15 p.m., the Newbury Planning Board will hold a public hearing virtually via Zoom to consider an application submitted by DePiero LLC for an open space residential development, OSRD, special permit for a property owner, Arthur and Sandra Costanos. The applicant requests approval of a proposed OSRD plan for 13 lots to include 12 new single-family dwellings and 1 existing dwelling, as shown on the 105 High Road, Newbury, Mass. OSRD special permit plan and accompanying OSRD and yield plans, C-103, C-104, C-105, and C-106, dated August 11th, 2020, and Figure -1, Figure 2, dated August 10, 2020, prepared for DePiero Properties LLC by Design Consultants, Inc. The application is on file with the town clerk and in the planning office, Suite 101, 12 Kent Way, Byfield, Massachusetts. A digital hard copy may be requested by emailing planningboard@townofnewbury.org. The plans and project narrative may also be viewed on the planning board section of the town's website. For more information, contact the planning office at 978-465-0862, extension 312. All persons interested or wishing to be heard relative to the proposed development should appear at the designated time and place. Interested persons may participate in the meeting from their computer, tablet, or smartphone at https://us02web.zoom.us/8327-1413-056, or by telephone by calling 1-929-205-6099 US and using meeting ID number 832-7141-3056, or may watch the meeting live on local access cable television, channel 9 at www.tvctv.org. Peter Pecos, Chair, Newbury Planning Board, published the Daily News, August 31st, 2020, and September 7th, 2020.
Thank you, Leslie. Martha, can you confirm tear sheets?
Yes, well, I've got the return, the green cards. Actually didn't get the tear sheets, but Jill may be able to speak to that.
Thank you. So at this time, I'd like the applicant to make a presentation to the board. Would that be Jill or Steve?
Good evening, Mr. Pecos. I'm Jill Mann here for the record, representing Tapero Properties LLC. We're here this evening again just to represent and renotice the abutters because we did change the yield plan from an 11, I believe it was 11 to a 12 lot conventional plan, 10 to 12, I think. Notwithstanding, we did provide all the notices. I thought my assistant had sent Martha the tear sheets. I can submit those if she didn't submit them already, but I'm pretty confident she had, so I'm kind of surprised. I thought they came with the cut sheets, but I can look through her file and send them. It is pretty clear that it was in the newspaper. That being said, the purpose for tonight's meeting is to secure some action by the board and comments from the board. The plans we had delivered were a yield plan, and pursuant to the legal opinion that was issued by Mead Tallerman, we actually delivered a plan that is completely by right. There's no waivers required in that conventional plan. We meet all of the subdivision rules and regulations. So basically that 12 unit plan is by right and is something that we can do under definitive subdivision control. And the plan that we developed as a result of that, or the OSRD plan, was a 13 unit plan. And that was also delivered and continues to provide a large amount of open space. For tonight's meeting, we really are looking for direction. We're looking for the board to accept the yield plan that basically creates that density, that creates that 12 unit density. And then we would like to discuss with the board tonight the ability to secure the bonus unit based on the open space. And I think that's something we need to discuss. We had briefly touched on it. And the issue was the way in which the legal opinion is rendered actually, believe it or not, reduces the amount of open space you can give at the initial provision, because it requires that you look at how much contiguous upland you can give and then to back into the number to be able to make open space only twice whatever that contiguous land is. And as long as that's 50% of the development area, that's what your requirement says. The way we were calculating it before gives you more land. And as I said, in the OSRD that we have presented to you, we still give you more of the land. We're not trying not to, but we needed to demonstrate what the interpretation in accordance with that legal opinion was. And I think I saw Attorney Winter was on here. He probably could speak to that as well. So basically, we did submit this also to your peer reviewer, Mr. Sawaka. And we got back comments from him, and then I did provide a response letter by DCI. Honestly, the comments were very concise and very easy to respond to. One of the things that Mr. Sawaka raised was that we only had soil tests for 3 of the lots. In fact, we do have them for 2 additional lots, and I did submit something that demonstrates that. And then the other lot that didn't have the soil tests, we're more than willing to condition any action taken by the board tonight on completing that. But it's pretty clear that the entire property has the identical soils, which are sandy soils with a perk rate of somewhere around a minute, 60 seconds. I think it might have been 2 minutes, but they are all sandy soils. In addition to that, Mr. Sawaka kind of was more referencing what we would need to do on our final plan more than our concept plan. So our concept plan shows a by right use. As far as performing all of the stormwater management work and creating the stormwater management plan, we actually wouldn't do that till we know, okay, this is how we're going to move forward. And then we would have to be fully compliant. We, proceed at our risk that we can't develop a stormwater management plan but we know that we actually are able to do that because we did do a very basic design. One of the other issues that he raised was, I'm trying to see this one. Oh, he raised an issue about new comments. So remember how we had an original response back in June? So these were all reissuances of those comments. And then the only two new comments, if you will, relative to our plan is referencing the backland, because as you know, the backland has some floodplain in it. And he basically asked us, you know, where we got the data. And we did get the data from basically from the GIS maps. And we would have to actually file a request to amend a plan because that's what the state has for its plan for the floodplain. But the floodplain elevation is 13. So it's 13 feet, and there are areas that are in fact higher than 13 feet. And we know that based on our inspections of the property for delineating the wetlands. So really that was one of his comments, that he wanted us to go in greater detail, but there's no real need to go into greater detail unless we're going to do a definitive subdivision plan and have to delineate for that plan. And if we have to, if we're going to go definitive subdivision route, we definitely will. And then he had just basically made comment relative to the lengths of the driveways on the yield plan. And the plan that you see is, and I'll let Steve go through this, Mr. Sawyer, go through this in a little more detail, but the plan you see, the lots laid out. First, we laid out the lots, and then we actually met with the fire department and worked in concert with them to ensure that we satisfied the requirements of, you know, the fire prevention code. And we do, relative to single and two-family homes, which are not subject to many requirements, but we did provide hammerhead turnarounds at the end of every driveway for most of the lots that are in the back, for all of the lots in the back. In addition to that, we have provided a cul-de-sac right before the wetland crossing. That was not actually even required by the fire department. It was just something we thought would be appropriate to provide in the event they wanted to be able to turn around before the crossing. So basically in response to his comment, yes, those driveways do in fact comply with fire safety and have been designed accordingly. So those are really, you know, our comments that came back. I mean, we have gotten some letters in support. I sent one over recently to Martha, you know, just delineating some people's support of the project. We are prepared tonight to answer any questions from the board regarding the plans, the yield plan, the potential OSRD plan, and, you know, the yield plan being the potential definitive subdivision plan. With that, I would ask if the board has any questions relative to, you know, the plans, what I've stated, any of the information that you've received prior to this hearing from the last submittal, or even the responses from Mr. Sawatka, or comments, excuse me, from Mr. Sawatka.
Thank you. Does Steve want to make a presentation?
Steve, I'm not sure if you want to go through your plans. I don't, would the board, I guess, you know, Mr. Pecos, maybe the more thing, would you care for one? I mean, would you like us to go through it with you just to give a refresher?
Well, you indicated that he might want to say something, so I was giving him the option to do that.
Right, and he could if the board would like that. Go ahead, Steve.
All right. Martha, are you allowing me to share?
I've made you a co-host if you want to.
Okay. All right. So can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So as Jill, I'll just review the yield plan quickly. So we have this new subdivision road fully complies with all the regulations with the Newburyport subdivision requirements. So it's basically a 480 foot, or 480 foot long road. What is it? With a turnaround at the end. We have 6 duplex lots off this road that meet the frontage, zoning, all the zoning and dimensional requirements. First, we have lot 1. There's 4 lots that are situated in the field. We have lot 1, lot 4, lot 5, and lot 6. Those all conform to 2-family lots within the zoning requirements. So lots 4 and 5 have somewhat of a longer driveway. So what we've done is these driveways are set right on the edge of the property line that provides access to the rear, or 20-foot access to the rear of the property. Now, what we have coordinated with the fire department, and what they've asked for are the turnarounds, hammerhead turnarounds at the end. You'll see that in this screened area here, there's a hammerhead turnaround and a hammerhead turnaround here. So the fire department has full width, or full 20-foot width access for that portion. Lots 1 and 6 are just, the driveways are right up on the right of way. And then as we look to the rear of the property, lots 2 and 3 are in the wooded area in the rear. There's a long driveway. Once again, it's not a common driveway. There's 10 feet of driveway on each lot. And if we were to go to the definitive subdivision, they'd be an cross easement, that there'd be no, I think Joe Swarka had mentioned about the not allowing a fence or any landscaping down the center of those roads. That would be precluded. So that would give the fire department the required access. As we run down that driveway, there's a cul-de-sac or a cul-de-sac turnaround, which they did not require. What they asked for was at the end of each. You can see this screened area here. I think on the figure I had provided at the previous meeting that we reviewed, there's the fire truck turnaround at the very end of the road where the dwellings would be located. So as such, Joe had mentioned about soil testing in the rear. There was soil testing completed in the rear. It wasn't shown in the plan that was submitted back in August. There were 4 pits in the back. It was all sand and gravel. And I believe, Martha, I think on one of your site visits, you witnessed the gravelly, porous nature of the soil, of the remnant soil on the surface of those. So that, as far as the yield plan, this is fully complies with the definitive subdivision regulations. The roadways have been coordinated with the fire department as far as for their access. The only thing we would need to do is we'd have to file with the Conservation Commission to permit this driveway crossing. The crossing is well under 5,000 square feet. It's at 4377. So that is permittable through the Wetlands Protection Act. As far as for the access to these rear lots, we have soils for those. That covers the yield plan. Now, I'm not sure, would we want to, I think we spent a lot of time on the yield plan, the by right or the waiver-free definitive subdivision. I'm not sure, should we go back for discussions regarding the OSRD plan, or should I go right into presentation of the 13-unit OSRD plan?
Well, Steve, it's up to you. And we are trying to keep this to 30
Yeah.
to 40 minutes.
I
do
would
want
go
public
right-
comment.
I go right to the 13 units, Steve. That's what we're seeking. So I would definitely go there,
Yep. Okay.
please. Thank you.
All right. So we presented this at the last meeting. Just so everyone's aware, from the initial submission, there is no change to the roadway dimensions. The roadway is exactly the same from the original submission. The only thing we did was we tightened up the density on the right side of the road. So we added the 2 additional lots along this edge of the road. So it's roughly about a 900, I think it was 900-foot roadway. The 13 lots rim around the roadway. We are providing, the only difference as far as the open space, I think our open space probably stopped at lot 6. So lot 5 encroaches into where the original open space was located. Now, we're still providing the access, the parking with the trail that loops around to the rear. So if we look at the context plan at a larger scale, you can see this expansive open space with the walking trails and such. So just, I want to reiterate the fact that with the definitive, it's actually, our costs for the OSRD is substantially more than the definitive. Our client is spending a lot more money to construct this road, the common septic system. So our actual public, or actually it ends up being a private way, where the plan would be a public way, so that it would end up being built to town specifications. The town would end up having to take maintenance, deal with the maintenance of that. This one, the OSRD, the road's much longer at a much greater expense. He ends up having to build a common septic system, which he wouldn't have to do. But what it does do, it saves this whole primary conservation area in the rear. With the yield plan, this would be all developed to be two large, two-family residences back here with the roadway going back. So it does provide a substantial benefit in that manner, while costing our client a substantial amount of more money to concentrate the development up of the in the front of the and create this large open space area for the public enjoyment.
Right, and if I could add too,
Yep.
so with regard to the open space residential subdivision, this would not be a subdivision plan. We would opt for the alternative development style under your OSRD, which is simply a condo, which means it's really just a single lot with a driveway entrance, as shown. So we will still seek, under the OSRD, we'll still seek the requisite waivers that may be necessary. But in Brian, you'll have to address this. I don't believe I need to seek any waivers relative to each individual lot, because it's simply one lot, and you're permitted under the OSRD section to develop it as a single lot condominium style. But for the purposes of the board and for purposes of when we go forward with our condominium plan, we do set out the exclusive use areas for each of the individual homes. So the lots are kind of the lot areas that you see aren't lot areas. They are just the exclusive use areas or easements that the unit owners have over the condominium land.
So as you can see, actually, we had changed that. So with that last submission, we call each lot of exclusive use area for each. These exclusive use areas range from about 12,000 to 16 to almost 17,000 square feet as far as the lot sizes.
And the reason we prefer to do this in a condominium is because I think I might have discussed it before. It's just condominium style provides each of the individual unit owners with greater protections, because you have statutory control versus contractual control. So if there's an issue relative to the stormwater management system with regard to the septic system, the unit owners can seek recourse via the condominium against one another to be able to ensure that everything is well maintained, to make sure the homes are maintained, to make sure the roadway is maintained, and to make sure there's equal contribution by each and every individual unit owner. So that is the benefit of doing it. And that is why, if we were to do the OSRD, we most certainly would use condominium style, because it just is a far greater protection and provides for a better development overall in this type of a context. Is there any way to put them up side by side, Steve, so that the board can see both of them? I'm unsure if you can do that.
Yeah. See if I can do this.
That might be difficult because it would appear very small.
Yeah, okay. I don't know
okay.
if people can see
All right,
both.
good. Steve, do you have anything else new to present to the board?
At this time, I do not.
Okay, great.
Oh, actually, hold up. Just let me quickly go over the open space calculation. So the reason we asked for the open space or the bonus lot, for that matter, is that we are providing total open space of 68%. So the provisions allow for each 10% of additional open space, you're allowed a bonus lot. We're actually almost at 70%. So we're approaching two of, we're pretty close to two. So we're only asking for one. We have 18% extra, and we're only asking for one bonus on this. Thank you.
Thanks. We can probably stop screen sharing for now. That's okay.
Very good. Thank you.
Great, very good. Martha, do we have any administrative points at this juncture, or any comments that you'd like to make?
No, the only thing I will note is that Jill sent some things over right before the meeting, so I haven't had a chance to distribute those to the board. I think it was the response letter to Joe's comments, as well as one comment letter in favor. And Jill, I think there was one other thing as well.
Oh, yeah, it was just it was an attachment to the comment letter just with the soil test results.
Okay, all right. So those will be coming to the board, but you have not received them yet.
Thank you. I'd like to kind of get a sense from the board if there's any questions. So I'm going to start first with Larry. Do you have any questions or concerns at this time?
Well, as far as the yield plan goes, I'm not particularly comfortable with it, to be honest. There's been a lot of discussion about these two parallel driveways for lots 2 and 3. I can't imagine these functioning in the real world other than as a common driveway, which, as you know, we have a common driveway special permit requirement. And again, in the real world, I could see this as a common driveway for the back 2 lots and for lot 4 as well. I'm just wondering if we aren't putting form over substance here. Now, indeed, as Attorney Mann pointed out, we have a letter from the fire department indicating that NFPA and Mass Code of Regs has been satisfied, but I think that's on the assumption that both of these driveways are going to be built. And I don't think that's an assumption we can make. You've also in the presentation made the point that there would have to be a prohibition against any sort of fencing or shrubs or anything dividing those 2 driveways. I mean, these things go for, looks like to me, around 700 feet at 20 feet width before they start to open up. And just let me read from the August 26th letter from the fire department. Now, again, I acknowledge they do say that the NFPA requirements have been met, but once again, they're assuming both of these driveways are constructed and maintained. But even with that, it goes on, there is a concern about the potential flooding and the minimum width of the driveway that would perhaps hinder the access with required resources and proximity for providing such life safety and property conservation, which is our top 2 main objectives as a public service entity. This narrow driveway and potential flooding would incur damages to the apparatus, that's the fire apparatus. In terms of the length of the driveways, in the case of a multiple alarm fire, trucks would be stacked in the driveway, prolonging quick response and accessibility to the structures. It would also prohibit the ambulances from reaching the structures in the case of medical necessity during a potential event. I mean, public safety is something that we should be concerned with. And frankly, I'm very skeptical that outside of a purely hypothetical exercise like this, that you could really develop those 2 lots in this fashion. And those are my comments right now on the yield plan. I don't know if you want to get into the OSRD. I'm concerned about the density of 13 units on that parcel. I thought at one point we were moving towards a less dense development of the front piece, but now we seem to have taken a 180-degree turn and going in the opposite direction.
All right. Thank you, Larry. George, do you have any comments at this time?
Yes, I do, Peter. The road for the subdivision, the OSRD, is treated as a 20-mile-an-hour design road. That's nice to put in there, but it's usually not respected by the owners or anybody else going in and out. I'd like to see some type of traffic calming measures toward the end of the road at Route 1A, considering the traffic on Route 1A and at its speed, traffic coming in and out of Tendercrop, the amount of it, particularly on weekends, that it might be a little conflicted area. So if that can be done, I think it would be good to look at.
Thank you, George. Leslie, do you have any questions or comments?
I'm going to agree with George on the traffic situation because I know just, when you pull out and you want to take a left at Tender Crop and there's considerable traffic coming in either direction. So now you've added a number of, if you have 13 units, then let's just say you have 26 vehicles at least that are going to be coming in and out of that project. And I also I had concerns too that Larry brought up about the stacking of the fire equipment and the inability, if that happened, for medical emergency vehicles to be able to enter and take care of what was needed.
All right, thank you, Leslie. Woody, do you have any comments at this time?
I agree with Larry on the yield plan with the driveways essentially becoming a common driveway for the lots on the either edge of the property. And other than that, I don't have any questions at this time. No.
Thank you, Woody. Mary, do you have any comments at this time?
No, I don't.
I think I might hold my comments to the end after I hear what we hear from our public comments. I just want to turn briefly to Brian. Brian, do you have any comments or concerns at this point as to what has been said or suggested that you might need to respond to?
No, Mr. Chairman, not unless the board has any questions directly for me on anything that was said, but I'm happy to stand by.
All right, thank you. Martha, do you have any letters that you need to read into the record before I open it up for public comment? Or any new submissions of information?
Yeah, as I noted, I didn't print out the information that Jill sent right before the meeting, so I don't have those to read into the record, but we have received emails from Nick Crouch, who actually spoke at the last public hearing and sent a follow-up email immediately afterwards, an email from Carol Rice, and a letter from Gary and Ginny Brown. Carol Rice's was received on August 20th, and Gary and Ginny Brown's was received on September 3rd. So those will be added to the ones that are posted on the website.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, I'd like to invite the public to ask any questions or any comments. And again, we'll do this through the raise hand function. So on the computer, it's basically going down to the participants and raising your hand. And then on the phone, it's the *9 function to raise your hand on the phone. So I will take questions as their hands are being raised. I see Dave Powell. Dave Powell, would you like to? I'm sorry, Martha?
Yeah, I was just going to point that out. And David, you have to unmute yourself.
Okay, I'm unmuted. I hope you can hear me. I should ask the chairman, first of all, since I am not a Newbury resident, whether he would prefer to hear from residents of Newbury first, since I'm a resident now of Newburyport. However, I was on the planning board in Newbury for about 10 years and lived there for 23 years, and also was the planning board member who redrafted the OSRD under which you are currently operating.
Well, quite honestly, with that knowledge base and that historical perspective, I'm very grateful that you're here, because I think it's very important to appreciate how decisions are made and how conversations take place when components are finally designed. So I would welcome your participation as a previous planning board member, and I want to thank you and welcome you back for a visit.
So shall I go ahead with my
Please
comment?
do. Please do.
Okay, so there are a number of specifics which I'm going to submit later on, but I think at this point, in order to keep this brief. Essentially, I think what we're looking at, and I also should mention, I'm probably known to a number of people who are participating in this meeting who I have worked with in the past, and they know who they are. I hate to begin at the beginning, but essentially that's what I'm going to do, and that is to say essentially that this property is in fact not a property which lends itself to the kind of development which is being proposed. And that becomes clear when we are presented with a yield plan, which essentially is a reverse engineering exercise to provide the number of lots that the developer would like to achieve. The net result is that you've been presented with a yield plan, which although, as I'm sure both Steve and the attorney will assure us that it meets all the subdivision regulations, the reality is that it's totally ridiculous in the sense that none of those things would work in practice. You have a whole issue of the fact that essentially you would have to sell the whole thing before you could start construction, a whole number of issues of this kind, which clearly are not addressed in any way by the way that this plan is laid out. One of the kinds of things I notice also is that in previous submissions, there's something to do with an easement running along the northern boundary of the front part of those two lots, which seems to have rather disappeared in the setting up of the driveways which are leading to those two lots, which are at the back there. It's little details like that which worry me, that they sort of float by and nobody gets to know really what's going on. I think also the other thing which I find disturbing is that the current introductory material which was provided before these changes took place, there's been no discussion of revising that, and clearly that will need to be revised. So it's those kinds of things which I find disturbing. However, the one thing that overlays all of this for me is the assumption that if you are able through a yield plan to provide for 6 lots with 2-family homes on them, the logical outcome of that is that if you are going to develop an OSRD, that you would have 6 lots with 2-family homes on. Not that you would have 12 or 13 lots with single-family homes on. There is some apparent assumption that unit refers to some kind of idea that a 2-family home is a 2-unit, which can then be divided into 1 unit on 1 lot plus another unit on another lot. There was no intent, and there never has been an intent in the OSRD bylaw that Newbury has. And we were, I think some of you know, one of the earliest towns to adopt this. There was no intent that those two things were equated. So one of the things which seems to me totally missing from this submission, which I think would have to be there, is that essentially there would have to be a request that the planning board agree to this conversion. In other words, that they agree that 6 lots with 6 duplexes or two-family homes can be indeed converted into 12 lots with single-family homes. And if the planning board doesn't think that that's what your OSRD bylaw says and intends, and I certainly didn't intend it when I rewrote it, then I think we have a real problem here. A problem which apparently is only really in front of us because of the desire for the developer to have essentially single-family homes instead of two-family homes, which we all know changes the economics. So I'm not entirely impressed either by the fact that, for example, he would be spending lots more money for this, that, and the other, because clearly I think one of the overarching issues here is trying to take out of what is essentially a very difficult situation, just trying to take too much equity out of it. It's just not there. And, you know, my final comment would be in terms of a detail. If you look at that yield plan, I think it's lot number 1, the pink job that goes down the side of the south boundary and has a 3-foot pinch point with a triangle, access to a triangular area in the back. I mean, I find that, I'm sorry, Steve, insulting. I mean, that's beyond any kind of it's just ridiculous. It really is. And so those, I have other specifics which seem to me to be not germane tonight, but that's my overall concern for this. And I would hate to see what could be done with a genuine, real desire to provide and develop an OSRD on this property, I'm afraid doesn't lend itself very well to that. And it certainly doesn't lend itself to the manipulation that's going on here. So thank you for listening.
Thank you for your comments, and I appreciate your previous years of service and in helping actually write this OSRD many years ago. So thank you. To lower your hand. Jill, you have your hand up. Do you want to comment on some things?
I just wanted to actually ask Mr. Pecos, do you want me to respond to these abutter comments as we go through? Because I mean, Mr. Powell was going to actually raise some legitimate issues relative to the plan, and I don't know how you want to handle it, or do you want to do it all at the end?
Well, I'm watching, as we're speaking, I'm watching people from the community wanting to ask questions or make comments. So I think I'd like to hear from them, if you don't mind. So
no, I know the
let's do
time
that.
is short, and I'm just hoping that people provide actual constructive, not repetitive comment. But yeah, of course, Mr. Pecos, please. Thank you.
Thank you for your guidance.
So,
Martha, could you take over, please?
Sure. So Michelle O'Gerry is the next one on the list. So Michelle, I will ask you to unmute yourself, please.
Hi there, this is Michelle O'Gerry at 30 Cottage Road in Newbury. And I'm afraid I am going to offer a repetitive statement. I was basically going to say some of what David Powell said, although not nearly as authoritatively or eloquently as he did. I was just going to say that the by right plan, like he was saying, I think some of those lots are so extremely attenuated as to be ridiculous. That first lot, that lot number 1, I can't imagine a homeowner looking at that property, the lot dimensions, and deciding that that is a piece of property that they can actually use. And I'm not sure how it can have a pinch that's 3 feet wide, where you basically can put your hand out on either side and touch property that isn't yours. I'm not sure how how that works when you can't even access that part of your property to do anything on it unless you're, I don't know, on a bicycle or with a wheelbarrow. And my impression is that that plan is submitted only because it's a straw man and that it's so unworkable, then the OSD plan then has to be embraced because the other plan is so unworkable. And I would just encourage the board to not entertain any kind of exemptions or exceptions or allow any kind of special conditions with this, because I think that the goal is to try and develop it beyond what it's capable of being developed, whether it meets the letter of the law. I think it has to be looked at as how feasible this development is. And that's all my comment. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much, Priscilla. I appreciate you making that concise. I see Catherine. Catherine O'Brien, you've had the opportunity to address the board before. Would you like to give us some new information?
Yes, thank you.
If you could, great. Yes, okay.
Hear me? Okay.
Yes,
I too would like to thank David Powell. He said a lot of what I was planning to say, so I will not repeat that, but I am a direct abutter. I do know this property very well. I happen to be the one that has the easement. It's an exclusive easement, which means it cannot be used for anything except my purposes. Most times easements can be used by two parties. The landowner can use the easement for himself, and then the other person that would be burdening that can also use it. Well, that is not the kind of an easement it is. And I've sent it along to the town council, and I've had several attorneys look at it. So the easement, and I know that it is being used on, or was used on the yield plan, but I believe it's being used on the OSRD plan that I just have in front of me now. It continues to be an issue, and it's because the lot is so narrow. They cannot do what they want to do with it. It's very narrow. At the most, at the road, it's 129 feet. I have the 7-foot easement, so that makes it 122 feet. They didn't put on this particular map, engineering plan, they did not put down house number 1. No, that's not it. They did not put down the dimensions of the existing dwelling, how close that's going to be to the road. They've used the easement for grading purposes. And all of this lends itself to the fact that it is not a good subdivision. It just isn't. He's tried for years to figure out a way. And this is not a viable solution. Now, my second thing, and I won't take an awful lot of time, I do have a lot of notes, but I will just go to one that I feel is very important. And actually, there's two that are very important. And one of them is that the planning board is in charge of the master plan. They were the ones that consigned it. They accepted it. It was approved at the town meeting in 2008. And I've been reading the master plan quite a bit, mostly on the, the residential part of it. And I would just say that looking at the master plan and what they want and what the town wants and what they don't want. What they don't want is this subdivision. It is not in adding anything to the housing in the area. It's not adding anything to the traffic in the area. It's not adding anything that would promote the current situation that the people of Newbury chose. Their largest thing on the right to farm was on the master plan was that they did not want to see a lot of change. and they wanted to keep the property just the way it is, the houses just the way they are, and maintain the character and the quaintness and the feeling. Now,
Catherine, yes, I appreciate the.
okay. I'm just
No,
gonna,
no.
I'm gonna go then to my last one, because I think that this should be very moving. Okay, have you read the Right to Farm bylaw? It's a law. It was passed in 2008. I have a farm. If this subdivision goes forward, even if there's one house there, I will lose my farm. If you don't know horses like I know horses, you might say, oh, what's the big deal? You know, the construction noise will drive the horses crazy. They are flight animals. Even the slightest sound drives them to a dangerous situation. If you had your granddaughter sitting up on a horse and next door they dropped off a pallet of wood, that horse would be in Rowley in minutes. It's that frightening. It's so frightening to ride a horse that, and it is, people do it, and I do it too. But you have to be very cautious at all times. And the Mass General Law requires that there be a sign hung up on every barn that acknowledges riding horses is a very dangerous activity. It can cause injury and death, and it has caused death before due to excessive noise. Now, I'm just going to read one paragraph from this, okay? Very small. This bylaw encourages the pursuit of agriculture, promotes agricultural-based economic opportunities, and protects farmland within the town by allowing agricultural uses and related activities to function, here's the best part, with minimal conflict from the abutters, the town boards, which is the planning board, and commissions. So that's a very serious law that I think has to be taken into consideration with this particular development that wants to put me out of business. And take away farmland rather than protect it. I'm done.
Thank you, Catherine. I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just trying to.
Move me along. Okay, that was fine. I got to say most of what I wanted to. Thank you, Peter.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Martha, who do we have next?
Looks like Mick Crouch has his hand raised.
Mick, if you could identify yourself and your address, please. You might need to unmute yourself.
Looks like he's unmuted.
Okay. Mick, are you there? You're very faint. I'm not sure if you're in a bad zone area, cell zone. A little bit better.
Any better?
That's better.
Yep.
All right.
That's much better. Yes.
Sorry. So Mike Crouch, 127 High Road. Mine's mostly just questions. I think we discussed lot 1 and how there's along the south border, there's just like a 3-foot gap in between that corner. Is that what we were discussing earlier, lot 1?
That has been discussed, yes. Yep.
Okay. My concern is it's not concern, but like realistically, look at lot 6 with the very long line all the way to the end of the property that also leads up to a very small triangle. My question is, what's the realistic usage of that? But also I'm going to guess that there's a legal reason that that's there, but what's the realistic usage of it?
Good question.
I appreciate your comment, Mike. If you would like, I could summarize that. I don't want to summarize that. I would. I appreciate your comment. I'm sorry. Was there something else that you wanted to say?
No, it was honest. honest question. I have no idea if there's a valid use to it or not.
I think it's to try to validate a yield plan. So what is being submitted is a yield plan that's trying to validate, in the developer's eyes, what would be appropriate for an OSRD. So that's why there's kind of a two-layered process going on.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Martha, is there someone else in queue?
Yes, Peter Ganchev. You can unmute yourself, please.
And if you could identify yourself and your address, please. Thank you.
I don't know which.
I think you got it. Yes, you got muted. Just up. Try one more time. There you go.
Yes, hi, this is Peter Ganchev. I'm at 117 High Road in Newbury, and I had a couple of questions and some comments as well. The first is on the yield plan. I guess I was sort of surprised that a two-family home was used as the basis to size what could be done for an OSRD. Is this like standard practice in Newbury? And if so, why is it two-family? Why not three-family? Why not four-family? I was very surprised that this was the route that we've taken here. So that was one question. Another comment I had is that one of the benefits I thought of an OSRD was to provide open space lands managed for passive recreation, which is accessible to the public. And I'm not so sure that having this property, or this OSRD, surrounded by two farms, the Colby Farm and Catherine's Farm, and then the development on the west side, and then sort of wetlands on the east, how this is really accessible to the public when you consider you have to get there on a private driveway and only have 3 parking spots. You know, we see at the bicycle trail how the 3 spots are never adequate during the weekend. So I'm not so sure how this is providing a benefit to the public. So I'd like to hear a comment on that. And then the other part was sort of Newburyport Water. We've seen a lot of notices on the town website where we have to ration Newburyport water because there's a drought. We had a bloom. Will we have actually water to support this development and other development that's planned for Newbury? So those are kind of the few things I wanted to raise in today's meeting.
Wonderful. I appreciate you raising those comments and those concerns and expressing them. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Martha, do you see anyone else?
No, I'm going to lower Peter's hand. I don't right now. I don't know if there's anybody who's having trouble. I'm trying to scan to see if anybody's physically raising their hands.
You take a look as well.
A lot of people don't have their video on.
Right, right. Okay. Then I think what I'd like to do is I'd like to have since we've had our public comments, I think I'd like to have the board move into a discussion phase for a couple of minutes here. So we've heard, we've had a revised plan presented to us this evening. And we've heard some comments from some of our of the public. And to start our discussion, I just want to express a couple of concerns that I'm having. I kind of felt, and I don't know how other board members felt, I felt we were kind of in a good direction prior to this revised submission. And I almost feel as though we're kind of taking a step backwards with these creative lots with very, very long driveways that by our own fire service has indicated that they're concerned with stacking of equipment, flooding, and public safety. And that's a very real concern. And it's articulated. And I'm not sure why we're going back in this direction where we were here months and months ago. We were kind of in a different direction. That is a concern. And I think it's also valuable. I appreciate a historical perspective of the authors of our OSRD and what the intention was and how it's been directed and massaged as time has gone along. I think it's the true responsibility of this board to follow the intention of when concepts are developed. And I think it's also very important that we follow the public safety and all that all its effects are. And I also I always want to take into constant consideration resources. So those are some things that I'm expressing, seeing this new revised plan come forth to us. And I'd like to open it up for discussion. So I'm going to kind of just run down our board. And Larry, I'm going to start with you.
Well, Pete, I expressed concern earlier tonight about the viability of this yield plan. I mean, for an OSRD, you got to start with the yield plan, okay? And frankly, the comments I've heard, other comments I've heard, only reinforce my concern that this is not a valid yield plan, despite that it might arguably technically meet the requirements of our subdivision control regulations. I think the overriding concern with subdivision is the provision of safe, adequate access to any lot. And so I have a real problem with it. Even assuming they can get past that, it doesn't mean automatically that the board is going to approve the OSRD as presented. And I think, you know, that there are some concerns, particularly with density, and trying to fit 13 dwellings onto that front piece is problematic. So I would yield the floor.
Thank you, Larry. George, give me
Yeah,
some of
I
your
agree.
insight.
I very much agree with Larry and what he says about the yield plan. I support some of the questions that he has. And I also want to thank David Powell for his input. Thank you, David. Yield.
Thank you, George. Leslie?
I have concerns. I was taken aback by the, I consider it a really big change to the original plan, and the reduction in size for the right-hand lots. Like you said earlier, I thought we were moving forward, but I feel like we've taken a couple of steps back on this new proposal. So I yield back.
Thank you, Leslie. Woody?
I agree with what Larry's saying with the yield plan. It's not what it's intended, and as David said as well. And the density of 13 units on the front lot is just obnoxious, I think. They're too small, whether they're of the right size or not. It's obnoxious. And on a construction level, it's hard to break ground with a density like that. I think it's obnoxious. That's all for now.
Thank you, Woody. Mary?
Yes, I agree with Larry as well. It just seems to me that this way this has been presented from my involvement with it is that it's a very narrow lot, and a lot is trying to be, a tremendous amount is trying to be jammed onto this lot. And the safety issue is huge. On a small, that's the overarching issue for me, is that I think there's just too much going on here to successfully execute these homes in a way that's beneficial to the town. Number two is this issue of the easement keeps coming up. I understood that easements legally were written into the deed. And if an easement is then written into the deed, why is there a question about it? That's it.
I might direct that question. Yeah, okay, thank you. I might direct that question to council, but I do want to ask Brian a couple questions. Brian, something's been raised. I think it's important to have the board appreciate. When we talk about a yield plan and we talk about, calculating things for an OSRD, is it apples to apples and apples to oranges when we talk about lots versus units? What if a developer said, hey, I wanted to put a 4-unit structure on a lot, and that would then allow me to jump with, for additional lots on OSRD. Help me to direct the board with that piece.
Sure, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just so you know, while you were speaking, at least on my end, you broke up a little bit. So I hope I understand and took your question correctly. But I think what you were asking is whether or not the bylaw supports this sort of uncoupling and recoupling concept when you do the yield plan calculation to get the final number. And I heard the background and the interpretation that Mr. Powell provided, and certainly enjoyed hearing all of that and learned a great deal from it. Up until now, I've worked just with the plain language of the bylaw itself, and the bylaw in a couple of different areas refers to lot, but it also refers to dwelling unit. And I obviously wasn't part of the planning process, but I can tell you my understanding is that dwelling unit is a term of art, and it often refers to something very specific, not the four corners or the three-dimensional structure itself, but how many housing units are within it. So 2 family is 2 dwelling units, and so on and so forth. Now, that being said, at the end of the day, this is the board that interprets this bylaw and applies it. And a court, if reviewing the board's decision, is tasked with reaching this issue, the court is in the first instance going to defer to a reasonable interpretation that this board reaches, provided it doesn't contradict the bylaw, and it's, at the end of the day, a reasonable interpretation. So unless the court finds that it's contradicted by plain language or just contrary to common sense, et cetera, then the judge would give this board some deference. So to the extent the board finds that there's some ambiguity or an unanswered question there's some room for the board to re-examine that question and decide if it's consistent with the precedent of this board, to the extent it has any, and to determine whether or not it's consistent with the intent and purposes for which this bylaw exists. So all those are factors that the board might take into consideration in determining whether or not that's the proper way to analyze it. I can tell you the terminology that is used stood out to me to refer to calculus that involve dwelling units. But I don't see any language that is outcome determinative. I looked at it again while everyone was speaking, and I don't see any language that definitively states one way or the other, which leads me back to the reasonable deference to the board. So I think the board is going to have to examine that, examine its past practice and whether or not its application in this case is consistent with that, and ultimately what the intent, purposes, and goals of having this bylaw in the first place are.
Okay. Thank you, Brian.
Hey, Chairman Pecos,
So-
I might have some insight regarding past practices of this, if you'd allow me to speak for a second.
I know what the board has done in the past, and I know what we've done with 2 other situations prior to this. And Steve, I'll tell you, what the board has done in the past doesn't necessarily mean that's what the board's going to do today. I think.
But I think Brian, that's what Brian just alluded to, past practices.
Right, and he also, Steve, I don't want to get into an argument, but what I do want to do is I do want to have our board think about this, and I want them to come to a comfort zone with what they've heard, what this past, where we were, where we've gone, where we are now, because this has been a moving target. And I think this is now the third iteration of this project. And so I think the board's getting a sense of what's going on here with this project. So I'm seeing that my stable. I just saw that my internet is stable, and I am very apologetic. Comcast, it fails me quite often during these Zoom meetings. So I want the board to start to think about this, and I want them to think about what they've sat through up until now and where we're at. Larry, I'm going to ask for your guidance here. The applicant has come to us asking us for guidance, and direction. And I'm not certain if we can give them guidance or direction. And I need you to tell me where we go with this. Help me here.
Guidance and direction as to what?
Well, the applicant's representative said, tell us whether you want us to go with the yield plan or tell us whether you want us to go with an OSRD. And in the past, we have told applicants when they come before us that our role is not to tell them what to do. They're to submit. And they can submit what they want to submit, and it will go in the direction that it goes in. I think some things that we've articulated in this brief, I'm sorry. I think some things that we've articulated in this brief discussion is that we have concerns with this new yield plan, and the applicant has the option of going forward with this yield plan, or the applicant has the option of not going forward with this yield plan. I can't tell them what to do. So do we establish a plus on one aspect of one project and a plus on an aspect of another project? Then
Well, Pete, I mean, I'm reluctant for the same reason to advise anyone where to go with this. I think based on the discussion, it's apparent to me that an OSRD is problematic. And I don't know if I can say much more about that or want to say much more about it at this point. I mean, the applicant has not had an opportunity to make a full and complete presentation. They haven't had an opportunity to respond to some of the points that have been made. And before making any hard and fast decisions, I think we ought to give them that full opportunity. But ultimately, it's going to have to be the applicant's decision how they go with it.
Right. Okay. I appreciate that. Jill, I think you've kind of heard the discussion, and we can't tell you which way to go with this. Right. So you've heard some opinion, some sense of the board as to this new application and the concerns that are being raised just at this level without going drilling down deep in it. So with that, I leave you with the option of what you'd like to do.
If it pleases the board, I would love to be able to respond to the comments. I promise to keep them under 5 minutes. I'll be very quick in my response because it's very easy to kind of group them all. Would that be acceptable with Pecos? And then I can just set forth what I think may be the best plan to go forward.
If you'd like to respond, sure. And again, your plan is your plan.
Yep. I agree. Thank you. So with regard to the common driveway elements, the issues raised by Larry, I understand your issue. However, those driveways are actually permissible, and to the extent that the board were, during the subdivision approval process, if we were to go forward, we could seek a special permit. The only point of the yield plan was to provide to you a plan that shows a design that does not require a waiver, and that does. We did meet with the fire department, and when we provided those turnarounds, we actually eliminated the issues relative to stacking because we did the cul-de-sac, just so you know what the response are. We did that cul-de-sac in the midpoint, and then at the end of each driveway, we provided for a very large turnaround that would be accessible to each fire truck. So that issue doesn't pertain any longer. Relative to the issue regarding flooding, because of the stormwater management guidelines now in place, and each individual lot, notwithstanding the fact that it's part of a subdivision, must comply with stormwater management and control. those roads will not flood. It is not the subdivisions of 1970, and we will warrant to that. So relative to the issue, I'm trying to go through them all. I believe that was Woody's, that was a lot of people had that issue. Now relative to having access, there was an abutter who raised the issue about not having access to public land. In fact, the reason why some of the lots have the tail ends is so that we actually can provide for a part of the land that isn't really going to be part of their developed area in the conventional sense, and we would still provide for access. People could still use that in the subdivision to gain access. And in the OSRD plan, we absolutely are seeking the right to connect trails via the OSRD, just so you know. Relative to the density of 13 units, I mean, I understand, I truly do understand Mr. Powell's point, and I understand that he's committed and he was a drafter. I do. And and Brian, and Attorney Winter and I have been in many board meetings together, and I respect his opinion greatly, and he is 100% correct relative to the board's ability to determine what is said within a bylaw. But that is subject to some amount of control. And that control is that you have approved a few other OSRDs using the term unit, and the term unit is used throughout your OSRD. And when there's an ambiguity in a bylaw and somebody uses it and it's based on historical practice, pretty much that would be deemed to be arbitrary and capricious with regard to one particular unit to then change midway. It's just the way it is. And the reason why we can do units is because we go increase the amount of open space. I don't want anybody to think that if it were a single family lot, that we would be able to provide the same amount of area. You actually have to increase your area in order to attain 2-family units. So you are preserving or giving more land when you do that. So the density of 13 is in the OSRD. I understand people have issues, but relative to the conventional plan, the density of 12 is by right. So relative to traffic and the calming issues, that's something we'll absolutely talk about. But people always have, you know, when people are doing subdivisions, they think that traffic is going to be unbelievably onerous. Single family homes will generate somewhere around 9 traffic trips per day in a 24-hour period each. And during peak hours, they generate very few. So we can provide traffic for that, but notwithstanding the fact that people think it's going to litter that street, you won't even, you will barely notice it. With regard to the concerns about from Ms. O'Brien regarding the exclusive easement, and is reiterated by one of the board members, I can assure you, I'm a lawyer admitted to practice for 35 years. That is not an exclusive easement. Catherine O'Brien is wrong. I welcome her attorney to call me. It is an easement that is usable only by the 2 parties on his side. Mr. Custonis, who has the easement, can't use her side. So it's just, again, it is a non-issue. We're entitled to use that area to whatever purpose we can, provided it does not impede Ms. O'Brien's use. Relative to the lot shapes, it's because there is no lot shape limit in your zoning bylaw. They're all by right lots, so we can do that. And again, one other comment by Ms. O'Brien relative to the horse sounds, etc. The woman who actually owns the horse farm directly abutting Ms. O'Brien has actually issued, and it is on your website, I believe, a comment letter saying that she welcomes this, that there is no issue, that the project will be a great addition to the neighborhood, and she owns an operative horse farm. I understand that Ms. O'Brien is having economic issues and is struggling, but that isn't part of what we're doing, and we have no intention nor will harm her. As far as, okay. I think, we talk about horse shapes.
Okay. Again, depending on what shape this takes, I think we can then drill down all the specifics and go forward. Okay. With that being said, I'd kind of like to wrap up tonight's discussion. We're kind of a little bit over our conceptual controlling discussion, and I appreciate the discussion. I appreciate everyone's participation and all the comments that are being raised. At this time, Martha, can we pop up our schedule to see where we are going forward for continuance?
How's that?
Super. So we're meeting twice a month. Looks like we have some of the, well, let's see what's going to be happening.
So the reason the 14th is
So
highlighted
just give me a,
is that that's not a regular planning board day. That's just the golf center.
okay, so that month we have 3 meetings. Okay, so the 21st. So just projecting forward, Martha, what do we think is going to be landing on the 21st? Just so we have a feel of where we're at.
It's a little hard to say. I mean, hopefully
Yeah.
we're closing out one of these tonight.
Yep, a Green Street potentially. Self-storage, we should be, I think, wrapping up.
Right.
So 105, AL Prime is going to be active and moving, and Newbury's on its own course. So we have 105 and AL. So do we want to project this to the 21st of October for our continuation? Does that look like that'd be manageable going forward, Martha?
I mean, I think AL Prime and 108 Main Street could both be substantive discussions on the 7th. So
Okay.
it could be difficult to add a third long
Okay.
one to that night.
I'm thinking about the 21st.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Because then some of those will be leapfrogging over as well. Okay. With that, I would entertain, if someone would like to, for a date of continuance for the 21st of October. And we're all stacking them. It's starting at 7:15. Is that right, Martha?
That's correct.
Okay.
I'd move that we continue the public hearing until our October 21st meeting at 7:15 p.m.
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion on the motion? Larry, any discussion?
No.
George? Discussion on the motion? Okay. Leslie, any discussion on the motion?
No.
Okay. Woody, any discussion on the motion?
No.
Mary, any discussion?
No.
Nope. Okay. On the motion itself, Larry, how about you?
Yes.
Roll call. Okay. George, roll call.
Yes.
Leslie, roll call.
Yes.
Woody, roll call.
Yes.
Okay. Martha, help me out here. Is Mary voting on this one?
No.
Okay. All right. Great. Thanks.
No,
Okay.
she is. I think.
Okay. Mary,
No, I'm sorry.
how vote you?
No. What, am I allowed to vote or not?
Actually, I think everybody's participating, Pete, with you. So I think
Okay.
I think Mary's not on this one.
Okay.
Fine.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. All right, folks, we'll see you back on the 21st of October. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. Good night.
Okay, good night.
Good night.
All right, continuing on our agenda, and I appreciate everyone's, I just have to get technology over on my left to work. We have a public hearing, continued concurrent public hearing for Newbury Self-Storage Expansion, 131 Newbury Turnpike, map R36, parcel 2324, owner applicants Stowaway Storage, Newbury LLC, doing business as Newbury Self-Storage, William Deere Francesco, manager, continued from September 2nd, 2020. This is a site plan review application and a special permit application. Let me see, I have a couple notes that I just need to see that I'm online. I would like to ask the board members, are there any questions or comments regarding the 2 draft decisions? And I think, Martha, you can pop those up on the screen. Is that correct?
I can. Any preference for which one first?
I leave it up to you.
Okay, I'll do the site plan review.
Okay.
And is that visible?
Yes.
It is. Can you make it a little bit larger by chance?
I
That's beautiful. Beautiful. Do we want to just go down to the body of the body?
Sure. I mean, I think the really relevant parts are the findings, which the board reviewed before, and then the conditions.
Okay, so our only modifications were, we had some cleaning up on dates. Okay,
Yes, and there was a clarification that some of the continuances were due to COVID-19.
great. Okay, thank you.
And then actually no changes to the findings. In the
Okay.
conditions of approval. So, yeah, Bill had emailed me with proposed hours of construction, 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday, and suggested 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Saturday. I flagged this with a question as to whether the board might want to consider an 8 a.m. start on Saturday, and this is only if needed, just because there are some residences not far away and sound really carries.
Martha, I have two questions on that. One for you and maybe one for Bill. Do you recall what the hours were for the first phase?
To be honest,
This is construction.
Yeah, construction hours. And how long is the construction likely to take for this new phase?
You know, that all depends on site conditions and weather, to be honest with you. And I can't see into the future. Last time it took about 6 weeks after we had the slabs poured.
So we're talking months as opposed to weeks, as opposed to years.
Yeah, we're talking months.
Couple, 3 months.
It's a very tough site with a lot of ledge. Once you get the site ready for concrete, I arrange for the buildings to be delivered and staged in the back, and then I wait for the erection crew to show up. But the buildings themselves go up fairly quickly. It's all of the site work, which just takes a tremendous amount of time.
I understand.
The good thing about this is that all of the site work will be happening on the back of the site behind the existing buildings, so you'll be able to see very little of what's going on.
Okay, thank you.
Martha, I'll let you continue.
okay, actually, I have a question for Bill, if I may. For the construction, Bill, where are you thinking the access is going to be from?
The access is going to be from, most of it's going to be from Route 1.
So you'll be coming through the entry of the site?
Through the entry of the site, you're going to be seeing a proposal next meeting from K&R that they're going to submit site plan approval for a site on Boston Road across from the dump, which I sold them. And I do have an easement over that site to get to the back of the property. But I don't think they'll be, you know, they have an awful lot of work to do to get that site ready for me to even use the easement.
Okay, yeah, you answered another question that I had, which was the purpose of that easement, but that's another discussion. Okay, so you're anticipating it will be through the main entry?
Yeah, through the main entry.
Okay. All right, so going forward, Bill, I don't know if you have any thoughts about an 8 a.m. start versus a 7 a.m. start on Saturdays.
Could we do 8 a.m. to 2 o'clock?
That would be up to the board. I guess, well, let's go through these and then we can come back to them. I added a condition regarding blasting with reference to state regulations and also the requirement that obviously they can't blast without getting a permit from our fire department.
Right. I've talked to K&R, the site work guys, and they've blasted many times in the past, and you have to follow all the state laws to do this, and the fire department would be there.
Yeah, yeah. And then revise some of the language regarding limit of work. Bill, I picked up the language that you sent me about the no cut beyond boundary and that
Okay.
will be marked. And that would be reviewed at the pre-construction conference, and no trees should be removed beyond that cut. No cut beyond boundary without prior approval of the planning board and the Concom conservation agent, and without a good cause. And any tree removal beyond that without approval would be cause for immediate enforcement action. I added a condition regarding the exterior lighting in the expansion, which would be wall-mounted wall packs only, and that the color temperature of the light bulbs shall be 4,000 K. And then a condition regarding any modifications to the approved site plan, which is actually in the bylaw. I just carried it over to this. So I think those were the only changes to the draft that you had seen before. And I guess there's a question from the applicant on the table about the Saturday hours of construction.
And generally, they don't work Saturday anyways, but if they are going to be there, I think they need to be there for a long enough time that they can get something done. They have to warm up their machines in the morning, and then when they shut them down, they have to clean them off. But I really don't think they'll be there a lot on Saturday.
All right. So Martha, does that take care of our site plan approval decision?
Well, I think it does, unless there are any comments, and
Okay.
The hours of construction, the board should make a decision.
Okay. So let me just quickly go through the board. Larry, any comments or concerns or opinion on the hours of construction for Saturday?
No, well, I think 8 to 2 on Saturdays would be a reasonable compromise.
And everything else looks good?
Yeah.
Okay. George?
Same as Larry, 8 to 2. Otherwise,
Okay.
everything else is good.
Great, thank you. Martha, make sure I'm getting the right people because of our voting. Leslie,
I think 8 to 2 is reasonable.
and everything
All
else with the
Saturday work.
decision looks good. Okay, all right. Martha, am I going to Mary or am I going to Woody?
We're not allowed to vote on this, right, Martha?
Pardon me?
I thought I wasn't supposed to vote on this one.
I think there are four members who are clearly voting members, including Woody. So it's actually Pete, Larry, Leslie, and Woody
Right.
are the voting members on this one.
Indeed.
On this one, okay. Okay, great. Woody?
8 to 2 sounds fine with me.
And everything else looks good?
Yes.
Okay, and I'm in agreement as well, Martha, with those comments. Okay, so that takes care of our site plan review decision. You want to pop up our other decision?
Actually, I misspoke. This was a site plan review, so the only ones voting on this are
You see?
Larry, Pete, and Leslie.
Right.
Sorry, Woody. It's the changing of, and the reason for this confusion, folks, is we have changing of the guard as the projects extend longer, and we have elections and people moving from different positions on the board. Okay.
All right.
Okay, and we'll pull up our.
So then we'll, oopsie, sorry.
Martha, do you need a motion to approve the decision as amended? Or we just do that?
No, there will need to be a motion. I didn't know if Pete wanted to go through both of these decisions first and then get motions, or do them one by one.
Let's keep it clean. I would take a motion to accept this.
Yeah, I would so move.
Okay, is there a second? Great. Any discussion on the motion? I see none. Larry, how do you vote?
Yes.
George?
I may not vote, right?
He can't vote. So it's only, it's Larry, Leslie, and Pete.
Leslie?
Yes.
Pete says yes. Thank you very much, Martha.
Okay, one other question.
Yes.
On this. If we can get signatures, then we can let it sit. If the board wants to authorize you to sign on their behalf, then there needs to be a motion on that. I'm happy to meet people out in the hallway or bring it by and get signatures.
Feelings, folks. Want to stop by Town Hall to get a signature?
I have no problem with doing a live signature. Some
Leslie?
fashion.
I could stop by.
Okay, we will stop by, Martha.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, great. And we can move on to our next
So the special permit decision.
decision.
Roger? All right, is that big enough? A little more?
So, yes, okay,
That good?
very good. And our highlights?
So the highlights, I mean, basically the front part of it, the format's a little different, but the front part of it is the same as the site plan review decision in terms of procedural history and materials submitted. And it comes down to findings and determination. The general findings of fact are essentially the same findings of fact as in the site plan review decision. I did have a note here just to add some language about the floodplain on the northern boundary and the ACEC, which is just outside the site. This is all language essentially from the site plan review decision in slightly different form. Then some determinations as a special permit review criteria, which is just some general things. We don't have specific findings in the same way that we do in site plan review. And then the conditions. So I don't know if you want to go through any of these or if you had a chance to review.
Have folks had a chance to review?
I read the, I skimmed through it this afternoon.
And I can read through them if you'd like, or it's really up to you all.
So let's see, I'm trying to, so the decision, Martha, let's kind of read through them, if that's okay.
All right. So the first one is that Section 97-3M and the Table of Use Regulations authorize the Planning Board to grant a special permit for this use. Second one is 48 Section 9 states that special permits may be issued only for uses which are in harmony with the general purpose and intent of a municipality's ordinance or bylaw. Since it's in the Table of Use Regulations, it would be in harmony. And the next is kind of a statement of what the zoning bylaws is about. Then number D is the business and light industrial district is intended as an area for retail and service businesses. And skipping on for assembly and light manufacturing uses consistent with the town's current master plan. No business shall be located here that would be detrimental, offensive, creating dirt, odor, fumes, smoke, gas, sewage, refuse, noise, excessive vibration. And then this matter is properly before the board. The applicant is qualified to apply for the approval requested. Proper application was filed with the board. Many storage warehouses allowed by special permit per the Table of Use Regulations. It's in harmony with the general purpose and intent of Newbury zoning bylaw, the purpose and intent of the business and light industrial district. It will have no impact on wetlands. Impacts on other natural resources have been addressed through the site plan review process. Will not impact air or water quality, will not create traffic congestion. Stormwater management systems have been designed to address the impact of grading and other changes, and will have minimal impact on adjacent properties. So those were the findings. Do you want me to go on to the conditions?
Sure.
Do you want to talk about the findings?
Let's see, are there any questions with regards to findings from anyone?
None for me.
Okay, George?
No comment.
Okay, Leslie?
None.
Okay, Woody?
No.
Okay, Mary?
Nope.
Okay, very good. And then on the decision then.
Okay, so the conditions of the decision, basically the decision shall be filed at the Registry of Deeds. Any proposed material change will have to be approved by the planning board, going through the same process as the original submittal. Shall not be construed as approval from any other board, committee, official, or department. All the conditions of the planning board's decision of site plan review and conditions of approval from other permits or boards shall be incorporated into this decision. Duly authorized agent of the town shall have the right to enter on the property to ensure compliance. Business operations are limited to the hours between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. inclusive daily throughout the year, including weekends and holidays. Planning board retains the right to revise, modify, suspend, or revoke this decision for good cause. The approval shall expire if the business is sold, transferred, or conveyed, unless a planning board consents to the same in writing. And the special permit shall lapse in 2 years unless substantial use has not sooner commenced except for good cause. So that's
Okay.
it.
Pretty straightforward, I think, with that. Okay. I just want to ask the applicant, do you have any questions regarding the decision?
No, I don't.
Okay, great. That being the case, I would like to I'd like to see if we could get a motion to grant this special permit.
I'd move approval of the decision as presented.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Okay, I don't see any. So our voting members, if I have this right, Martha, will be Larry, Woody, and Leslie.
And
Myself. Okay, great. Larry, how about you?
Yes.
Okay, Woody, how about you?
Yes.
Leslie, how about you?
Yes.
And the chair is also in favor. Okay, let's see. Where else do we need to go with this, Martha? We
So,
need to button this up.
so yes, and I would say if everything is all done,
Yep.
a motion to close hearings.
Ah, I think I see Bill smiling from here. I would love to entertain a motion to close this public hearing.
You'll need to do both.
Oh, can we do them as one in one motion, Martha, or doing two motions?
Probably cleaner to do two.
Okay, Larry?
Okay, I would move to close the public hearing on the special permit.
Second.
Is there a second? Great. Any discussion? Okay, on the motion, Larry?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Leslie?
Yes.
Woody?
Yes.
Okay, and Mary, how do you feel? Okay, she might have signed off. Is there a second motion, Larry?
I would, oh yeah, I'm sorry, Pete. Yes, I move to close the public hearing on site plan review.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, Larry, how do you vote?
Yes.
George, how do you vote?
Yes.
Leslie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Woody, how do you vote?
Yes.
And the chair is also in favor as well. Wonderful. Martha, does this button this up?
Yeah, so this buttons it up. So what I will do is I'll just make the one amendment with the, well, the two amendments with the hours of construction and also just add in that slight language about floodplain and ACEC. Let everybody know when they're ready to be signed, and as soon as they're signed, then I'll get them filed with the clerk, and that starts the appeal period. For the special permit, we do need to notify abutters that the special permit decision has been reached. We don't need to do that with the site plan review, so that will happen also. So we should get that signed and filed with the clerk as soon as possible.
Okay, wonderful. Then folks will need to stop by for that. I appreciate that very much. Okay, I think we're good with screen sharing for now.
Okay.
Okay, then we're going to Continuing along, again, I appreciate everyone's patience. Continue public hearing, definitive subdivision plan applicant for Farm View Lane, 68 Green Street, map R35, lot 21, owner applicant 68 Green Street Trust, Eva Jackman. Trustee continued from September 2, 2020.
Oops. I seem to have.
Okay. And Chris, do you have something that you want to share with us?
Yes. Let me,
Chris York
yes,
from.
Millennium. All right, let me try that again.
Okay, I've just made you a co-host on your other identity here.
I see. All right, is that working? There we go.
Yep.
So I submitted to Martha a month ago. What's the date on the plan? August 26th, so about 3 weeks ago. Just another cleaned up version of the plan. Something that came up at the last hearing. Let me zoom into sheet number 4. Discussion had come up about this little pinch point between the right of way and what was part of lot 3. So what we did, I talked with the Jackmans, and what we did was we've kind of cleaned up lot 3. The lot line now is right here. And this triangular piece, well, these 2 triangular pieces really, it's all one piece, is now called parcel Y. And the intent of that was for the condo or for the homeowners docs to include parcel Y as part of the right of way. So when they do right of way maintenance, mowing the lawn, cleaning up, that parcel is included with the right of way. Ultimately, Fred may sell it to the neighbor, but for now it's still part of our property. So it'll be part of the right of way cleanup. Other than that, nothing has changed on these plans since the last hearing.
Okay, great. Any questions from any of the board members? Larry?
I'm just looking at my notes here. Wasn't there some discussion about providing screening for the abutters properties? Has that been added?
I believe we had talked about Fred, the Jackmans were going to, especially with the abutters to the south, they were going to kind of coordinate with the neighbors during construction. And I think they were amenable to putting up something along the southerly right-of-way, southerly lot line, especially since we're so close to the house here. The northerly property line, I know the abutter up here on Noise Lane had some concerns, but we ultimately moved this house much further down away from this property line, so there's well over 150 feet to her house. She's already gotten it, and there's already a pretty thick tree line out here now, so we're not proposing anything over there. So that's it on that. Again, Fred can speak on that if you need him to regarding this area. But we're not showing anything on the plan, but he's certainly amenable to planting some arborvitaes or some type of screening if these neighbors do wish that to be the case.
And you've had discussions with them?
I think that was a question, Chris.
Fred could probably answer that better than I can. I believe he's been in discussion with them, but I don't want to speak for him if he's listed with me here.
Fred, are you here?
No, I haven't spoken with Vicky. But I think a lot of this is going to be picked up around the houses with a landscape architect. We are going to put arborvitaes to shield on the north side. We're so close to Ray's house and the barn. I think arborvitae's will probably be the choice for any kind of barrier.
You said that was the north side.
For the driveway.
Yeah, I think we talked also about along parcel Y.
No, I'm talking about yeah, up by parcel Y, the north side of the road.
Martha, have we had any inquiries from the neighbors or anything about this?
Not so the one person who has mentioned this is Ginny Thompson, who's actually above lot 3 off of Noyes Lane. She's expressed concern. Even though there's quite a bit of forest there right now, once the leaves are down, she can see the field and the wildlife that's there. I'm just reading, she submitted an email on September 2nd. So her concern was about screening of her property on that side, as well as also about the roadway. She still has concerns about that being gravel as opposed to asphalt, which is a different discussion.
Mm.
I mean, the house that seemed very obvious was the one to the south when we did our site walk, because there's no, it's just field going into their yard, basically.
Right, yeah. I mean, if you're gonna do it anyway, would there be any harm in showing it on the plan?
No, I'm okay with showing it. That's fine. We can show a row of arborvitae's along the southerly line. We can show some along parcel Y. I guess, I mean, as for over here on lot 3, it's, I almost feel like that's something that would be better off done during construction, during winter, where they can find some holes in the tree line where you can more specifically place some trees. I mean, I guess I can show something on the plan, just a generic
Yeah, I mean,
proposed
I'm not trying to
row or
make
something.
them jump through hoops for no reason here.
Maybe there could be some sort of a condition that would address that.
That might be the best way to do that, I think, Larry.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
All right.
All right,
That
Larry,
seems
do you have
reasonable.
any- okay, I'm sorry. Did you have
No,
something else,
and
Larry?
As far as the homeowner's documents go, I assume town council is going to be reviewing those.
That was a question to the board, actually. If you'd like me to send them on to town council for review, I will do that.
I think it would be a good idea.
Yeah, I agree.
Very good. George?
No comments today.
Thank you, George. Leslie?
Nothing right now.
Great. Woody?
No, nothing
And-
right now.
Great. Mary? Mary, any comments or questions?
Mary, she's muted.
Let me see. Could you unmute Mary?
No. I'm
There you
sorry.
go. Okay, thank you very much. All right. Okay.
I guess only one question is that there still has been some question about the roadway and whether it should be gravel or asphalt. I didn't know if the board wanted to have any further discussion about that tonight.
I thought we went through the waivers at the last hearing. Am I correct in that?
I did go through the waivers. There was still a little bit of concern brought up about that. So I'm bringing it up just to see whether it should be revisited. That's all. If not, then let that one go.
Are there any concerns by any board members? Let me just ask. Larry?
I honestly don't have a strong feeling about it one way or the other. I can see the merits of doing it either way. And it's going to be a homeowners association. They're going to have to maintain it. It's not the town.
George, any concerns with you?
No comments.
Good. Okay. Okay, great. Leslie?
No concerns.
Okay. Woody?
I brought up a concern about that before, and I just find that a gravel driveway's harder to maintain than asphalt. When you have three households and multiple cars using it, and some people using it more than others. But if everyone feels comfortable that the homeowners association will address that, then fine. I will note though that that can be a clay area, and granted there will be a gravel driveway, but a lot of the other area driveways that have any length to them in that area are all paved. So my thought was that it should be paved, and it would also put some ease on the people that purchase these lots, build their houses there, and it won't be a bone of contention between the three lots. That was my only concern for it being paved. So otherwise, I'd leave it alone.
Mary, any? Oh, I'm sorry, Woody.
No.
No, I'm good.
Okay, great. Yeah, Woody, I appreciate your comments on pavement. Okay, let's see. Martha, have we had any additional comments from Joe regarding?
No, that's one thing. I think I'll put this on myself mostly, but we don't have comments from him, so that's one other thing that we need to get, I think, before we close this out. And that's primarily with respect to the wetland flagging and the revisions to the stormwater that are related to that.
Okay, let's see. Let's open this up for public comments. Martha, do you have any new emails or letters received since our last public hearing?
The only email received was the one that I just mentioned from Ginny Thompson, received on September 2nd.
That being said, do we have any public comments? Do you see anyone that would like to make a comment at this time?
Let me see here.
You could probably stop screen sharing, Chris, if that's okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Hold up the participant list. I'm not seeing anybody here.
Okay.
I know that there are some abutters on here, but I don't see any of them raising their hands.
Is there anyone that would like to ask a question or make a comment at this time? Abutters or anyone concerned with this project? Okay, I don't see any. Okay, with regards to a board's discussion, any thoughts or guidance for our applicant? Anything with regards to conditions for approval of final conditions? We have to get some insight from Joe. Yeah, and then we have to get the condo the homeowners documents. Any questions or any discussion, board members? Larry?
I'm okay for now. I'm good for now.
Okay, great. George?
No.
All right. Lissy?
I'm good for now.
Okay, Woody?
Good.
Okay, Mary?
All set, thank you.
Okay, so Martha, next steps. We have to get some stuff from Joe.
To get some stuff from Joe, get feedback from town council on the homeowners association and other legal documents.
Okay.
I think it might be possible to at least start drafting a decision, which might need to be modified somewhat depending on what Joe comes back to us with, and then continue the hearing.
Okay, great. Well, why don't we pop up our schedule to see when we should continue this hearing to, and what would be a realistic time frame for that?
Yeah, let's see. All right, do you have that?
We do. So the 21st, we plopped in 105. So we're at the 16th now. The 14th is just for the golf. Do we want to button this up for the 21st? Will that be enough time, or what's our sense of this? And from Chris's.
Yeah, I think it would be
21st.
21st.
Okay, all right. That being the case, I would entertain a motion to continue this public hearing to the 21st, following in queue at 7:15. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? Great. Any discussion? Okay, any discussion on the motion? I don't see any. Larry, how do you vote on the motion?
Yes.
Great. George?
Yes.
Leslie?
Yes.
Woody?
Yes.
Mary, how do you feel? Great. And the chair's in favor as well. Thank you. So we'll continue this for the 21st. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Fred. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Great. I think that buttons up our public hearings for tonight. Old business, I see a scheduled site walk related to 217, 221 High Road preliminary subdivision plan map R27 lots 51, 53, 54, 50, and 56. Martha, where are we with this? What do we think?
So I did reach out to the applicant and his team, and they're pretty flexible. So I think whatever suits the board. I am hoping to take at least a good portion of next week off.
Next week is off, so let's look at the following week.
So
we're looking at the 28th.
The 28th.
Yeah. Does anyone have any conflicts or concerns? Monday is Yom Kippur. I'm looking, I don't see, let's look back here. I might have potential conflict on on October 1st. Other than that, I think I'm looking okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, I won't be here on the 28th. I won't be here that whole week.
Okay. Oh, the 28th week you won't be. Okay. Do we want to look at the following week? When are they coming back, Martha? Or do we have them coming back?
We don't, Scott.
We don't
is
have a
making-
date for them.
Yeah, well, Scott, it's not a public hearing, so we didn't continue to a date certain. Scott's making some changes.
Right.
Based on the discussion, so I'm not quite sure whether they would be ready by the 7th. And we could try the 5th or the 6th.
I can't do the 5th.
Oh, the 6th. The 6th.
Tuesdays, I'm usually jammed up.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. I forgot Tuesdays are bad for you. And we could do it next week if that's.
No.
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 No. No. Chances of there being on a schedule by the 7th, and if they are on our schedule, it would just be starting the public hearing, and we could then do a site walk after that started anyways, if that fall that way. Okay.
Right. I mean, again, it's not a public hearing. I think it might be helpful for the board to see the site actually before the next discussion and just get a sense of, sense of it and sort of the relationship of the site to the abutters and things like that. But
okay,
if it's
would
impossible,
people be interested? Would people be interested in doing it the 8th, which would be maybe 10 hours after we see each other the night before? I could bring coffee.
No, quite honestly, I've seen it, so you guys could go and see it next week. You don't necessarily need to have me there. If you want.
Sidewalk without Martha Taylor?
Who's going to give the
I mean,
speech?
who's going to
Yeah,
keep
I
us
was
in
just
line to
gonna
make
say,
sure that we
who's
don't?
gonna give the speech?
That's right. Who's going to do the speech? It's not going to work. Oh my gosh. Somebody's going to say the wrong thing, and we're going to sneeze, and the next thing you know, well, sheboog's going to happen. So we don't want that. So I'm looking at the 8th of October.
Actually,
Mr. Chair, I'm leaving the meeting.
Very good, George. Thank you very much. Have a good evening. Thank you, sir.
All right, George.
Good night.
Right.
Actually, unfortunately, the 8th may not work for me. What about the 7th?
Yeah, I
that's
can't do the 7th. I'm sorry.
You can't do the 7th? Okay.
No.
I can do the 7th.
What I'm going to suggest we do is we do this via email. Does that make sense?
Do it. How?
Via, via email.
That's fine. We can schedule via email. That's fine.
Okay.
That way I won't keep folks tagged on tonight for much longer.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll do it by mail. Thanks everybody for your patience in negotiating. We know, I think somewhere where it might be. Okay, liaison reports. Board of Selectmen.
Okay, there were 2 meetings. There was an emergency meeting because rat infestation down on Morgan Avenue, and they're looking into that. And then there was a short meeting on a regular night, and it was just to issue a license for a new business. They did talk about some Triton issues and things like that, but basically it was a short and sweet.
Good. We like short and sweet meetings. Martha, don't worry, do not forget about the town planners report. ZBA.
They're meeting tomorrow night. It includes Cricket Lane, the 40B project off of Pearson's.
Interesting.
Okay.
That'll be interesting.
All right. Okay, Concom, we had another heroic night last night. I think we went to 10 minutes of 11 or something. Of concern for us, the Green Street was just about getting rid of the Japanese knotweed, right, not weed. I'm hungry, I think. And what other components were on the agenda? There was a long agenda and other things that affected us. 108 Main, 105 Main, right?
108.
108, thank you. Basically, we got the blessing to close the public hearing. So that public hearing is closed, and so it'll be going off to have the conditions, decisions formulated. I think those are the 2 big ones that were affecting us of concern. Now the stuff was, stuff Plum Island. Okay, MVPC.
Commissioners meeting is tomorrow.
Beautiful. Town planners report.
I'll make this short and sweet as well. Just as an FYI, we did get revised drawings from John Colantoni today for 108 Main Street. So I will email those around. A set was dropped off for Joe. He's going to put together a fee estimate for this additional review, which will actually be a 4th review letter. And next time we should be getting the site plan review application for the 84 Boston Road project, which was originally supposed to be submitted tonight, but was missing architectural drawings. I've got the 3 Newburyport Turnpike site plan review application to review. So I expect that may be submitted at the next meeting as well. Today I did get an inquiry from Moore and Cameron about procedures for application of a definitive subdivision plan, but wasn't given, they're not far enough along to tell me where it is or what it is. So there are other things coming down the pike.
Okay. Back to Concom, 3 Newburyport Turnpike was also introduced there as well, which will, so with that, I don't think we have any minutes to review. If there's no additional items to be discussed, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Leslie, I'll give it to you. A second.
Second,
Second, thank you very much, Mary. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, how do we say? Larry?
Yes.
Yes, great. Leslie?
Yes.
Woody?
Yes, and good night, everyone.
Woody? Yes, and Mary?
yes.
And Pete's in favor as well. Everyone, thank you very much. We are 24 minutes over where we should be, but we're trying to get better. Thank you, thank you, thank
You're
you.
great, you're great.
Okay.
Martha, thank you.
See you in the morning.
All right,
See you
thank you very much,
tomorrow.
everyone. Yes, don't
Bye.
forget.
See everyone in, see everyone in 10 minutes.
Coffee. Good night, folks.
Good night.
Good night.